Hello there, Guardians, Ghosts, and Gamers. This is Hako, Artist Poet on PlayStation 4, playing Destiny 2. I'm going to talk a little bit about, well, what I've always talked about, choosing gear and where I am in the state of the game versus where Bungie kind of wants players to be. Um, First off, a little wish list item here. I would love it if blue items could be dismantled into just materials. Now, I know now with transmog, you want to hold on to some blue armor because sometimes that armor, it's kind of nice. It has a nice clean silhouette to it, or it features a particular theme or aesthetic that you're interested in establishing for your character to kind of give it some kind of, individuality. Because with a very really limited pool of abilities, and I'm not complaining about it, but it is honestly a limited pool of abilities. Um, and meta, of course, being what it is, you kind of boil down to the same cookie cutter Guardian when it comes to gear and class abilities and things like that. So armor looks and ornaments of your weapons are pretty much the only thing you can really customize in the game, because you don't even get to customize your Guardian's name. It is going to be your PlayStation tag, which is kind of puzzling because if I had three Guardians, which I don't, all of them would be called Artist Poet, and I'm like, Artist Poet the Warlock, Artist Poet the Titan, and Artist Poet the Hunter. I would love to say, Bale Witch 45 for the Hunter, actually Bale Witch 42 for the Hunter, and so forth and so on. But anyway, I digress. We're talking about gear. Okay, so Stompies. Now, I've played with all the Hunter exotics, as many of them as I have collected. I have not been interested in Beyond Light Hunter exotics for the very specific reasons of, one, they don't do anything for me, and two, they are just hideous as fuck. There's, I mean, I have no interest in wearing that. I'm sorry. Not to mention, the light shift ability has been nerfed back so much that it doesn't even make it worth it. Plus, the way to attain this is just not within my playstyle. Yeah, I like a challenge, and it's fun to go ahead and throw yourself at a legendary lost sector from time to time just to see how far you can get. Games are supposed to be that. They answer the what ifs and wouldn't it be cool kind of questions. And honestly, the rule of cool does not work with this mask. I've just no interest in that. Same thing goes for the Aetherius Embraces. This is like, I don't go for gear that is honed in specifically on um, one ability that virtually has no other usage outside of its own design. So, for instance, weighted knife gains a second bounce. Excuse me. Rapid precision hits with your weapons grant weighted knife a significant damage bonus and the ability to stun unshielded combatants for a short time. It will go ahead and affect the unstoppables. Oh, excuse me, as I'm choking on those words. First of all, not a bad looking piece of armor. It's actually one of the few symmetrical pieces of armor that the Hunter has access to. Again, acquirable in something that I pretty much don't give any fucks for. And secondly, I don't play weighted knife. I do Fanblade. Okay. There's this one here, which is again like the Mask of Bacchus. Another fuck no. Dude, seriously, my eyes are actually up here. Get it? I think if they had just one eyeball here and one eyeball here, then I'd probably wear it just for the memes. Or even if they put just one eyeball here, I would probably wear it for the memes. Or if they put the two eyeballs here and the two eyeballs here, I would wear it for the memes. But all of this is just not cool, dude. If this is Clovis inspired, man, that boy was. Why? I don't want blinking Pokeballs on my chest. Okay, why? Not to mention the ability is, again, Guardians you make invisible gain damage resistance. That might be kind of fun because I do play. I think it's Bottom Tree Night Stalker from time to time. Let me double check that. Uh, I'm pretty sure it's Bottom Tree Night Stalker because that's the one that gives you the Invisibombs. So yeah, Vanish and Smoke. So this is the one where you throw it down when your team is at the command post before they disperse, and everybody who gets stuck in that blast gets invisibility and a small damage resistance. But but like again, it's like this
What happens when
exotic
every
piece of
cell is
armor
dead?
does that, but supposedly better. You don't hear anybody talking about it, and there's a good reason why, because it's trash. It's kind of just, it's just kind of trash. And then there's the new one for this season, the Star Eater Scales. You gain an additional super energy from orbs of power you pick up. While your super energy is full, picking up an orb of power overcharges your super,
It is my fate
causing
to
you to
help
gain a
you.
burst of healing
This
when
I
cast
know.
and a bonus to your super damage. At maximum output. Okay, these
You
were
have
pretty
fought
fucking cool.
everything else that entered this realm.
Again, not
We must fight a
not too
balance.
much on the what the fuck mode or fuck no mode. Um, I'm not into all this extra. If it was just the reptilian like legs, that'd be fine. But the fringes and shit like that, um, it just looks. I don't know. You probably wouldn't want me to get in your car with your fancy leather bucket seats. You know what I'm saying? I don't, I don't know. It just looks hella goofy. I'm not entirely in it. I'm not into this. Look like there's a crab in Japan who they call it a samurai crab, and it literally has survived. Carl Sagan talked about this. It literally has survived because the people who first found its ancestor on the beach said, "Hey, that looks kind of like a samurai's face," and they didn't kill it. They would wipe out and eat everybody else, but they left this particular species alone.
Yours
Well,
is a lonely
the
existence.
course of natural selection over the generations, uh, the crabs
I
that had
still
this
need to
genetic defect
explain.
that caused their
But
carapace
every
to look
time
like a
I
face
try, I lose the
would
thread.
survive, and so that genetic code would be reinforced, because I mean, well, if it works, we're going to do more of it, and it's just chemistry. And eventually, now that we have these, little samurai crabs running around on the coasts of Japan in this one particular region, I can't remember where, but yeah. So this look kind of reminds me of that, and that's, I mean, I would wear it for that because it's something that was really intriguing to me when I was younger. I was in grade school when I first heard about this, and it always just kind of stuck in my head that how human beings are attracted to things that look like faces. But this kind of like, I don't know. This reminds me of a skiff, of a hut skiff on Tatooine from like Return of the Jedi
I
kind of
think
thing,
you
or
have
from
terrible
Rebels.
need of my
Uh,
grace.
it's not. I mean, like I said, yeah, but this is actually something that I probably would have worn because it works with any super. It's not just, it's not just Quiver, it's not just Gunslinger or anything else. It works with all supers, but guess what? Bungie nerfed it. So it's like the moment the hunter gets something that's actually good and competitive with the other classes, exotics, they nerf it. So I'm like, well, let me. So then I started thinking about myself. Foe Tracer. Yeah, I used to be really big into the Knucklehead, the Graviton Forfeit, and the Hawkmoon. I mean, the Nighthawk. These three helmets used to be my favorite exotics. Then for a little while, I kind of got involved with Lucky Raspberry, and I was really getting into grenades, and then they nerfed Hunter grenades to the point where they're just kind of basically just a tickle, and I'm like, I don't need that shit. I tried the Ophidia Space, never really could get that. Shinobu's Vow, I ran around with just because it looked cool, but it improved also the skip grenade. Again, the grenades are kind of meh. Liar's Sleeves, Liar's Handshake, there we go. The Liar's Handshake, fucking awesome. Worked great, but again, limited you just to one class, one particular ability. So, I mean, Orpheus Rigs I ran around with, Frosties I ran around with. Sprinting gives energy, dodging speeds up sprint. This is really kind of cool if you're like really on big maps, but if you're on short maps, you're gonna look like an idiot. A buddy
I
of
have
mine
a
swears
message
by the
for you
Gemini
from the
Jesters when
Nine.
he plays PvP, and
Rest,
it works for him, so
my
good for him.
familiar.
Lucky Pants only really works with hand cannons. Um, again, everything here is again one specific ability. I found out that I like the Stompies. It buffs sprint like this does. Okay. But always, it's got a static buffed sprint, a static slide, and a static jump. That's buffed. Now, when you think about a hunter, Banshee says it best. I could never get over all that jumping around. I don't really like all that jumping around,
I
and that's the
didn't
hunter thing.
mean to explain,
And I like
but
the
every
jumping
time
around.
I
Now, I'm not
try,
a
I lose
platformer
the
per
thread.
se, but I enjoy being able to jump the fuck out of things, out of the way. I jump out of line of fire faster than I dodge out of line of fire. I don't really use my dodge except to do reloads and maybe break line of sight if someone's got to be on a lock. It doesn't always work, unfortunately. But the Stompies has been my pair of pants in Destiny 2 for quite some time now. And I love the Bombardiers. I think I will play the Bombardiers if I'm on a 6v6 run in PvP because it's just a meme. It's just stupid funny. Max this up with some mobility, and you are a thorn in everybody's ass. Um, but the Stompies has been my thing, okay, and that's just kind of my jam, and I've been having really lots of fun with it. Um, so I'll be honest now. Couple over the last 2 years, I have gotten so disenchanted with Destiny and have become so infuriated with the way the game plays and so bored with the repetition of the seasons and their formats. I've actually deleted this hunter a good couple dozen times. I should be artist poet 5 at least if I'm because I'm an XL, get it, haha. But I've had quite a number of really good pieces of armor. I've had quite a lot of really good armor weapons. I was a big Black Armory fan. I ran the Ringing Nail, Kindled Orchid, and the Hammerhead up here, or the Strike of Surehand. And when they all got sunsetted, I was like, oh, well, out with the old, in with the new. And I deleted everything from materials because I was going to use those materials to upgrade the new guns that were coming in. And now it's like, oh, I could have kept all that shit because it's still all relevant in Crucible because everything's battle leveled in Crucible. Not to mention that they've all said that sunsetting is not happening anymore. Um, so, kick in the face, what a way to inspire hoarders and empower them by going ahead and creating this FOMO and then going ahead and just like well, everything is going to get relevant sometime. I think it's bullshit. I think when you go into collections, you should be able to pull out an archetype of those weapons, regardless. There shouldn't be this cannot reacquire randomized gear. Well, then give us something that's not randomized. Give us an Either Doctor that is the curated studio recommended role, because there are. If you go out to Light GG, there are recommended roles by the community, and then there's the studio design one that they talk about, which is pretty damn fucking awesome most times. Um, I like random rolls, that's fine, but I think random rolls should be something you do at the gunsmith. I don't think it should be something you do out of strikes. I don't think it's something you should do when you get the drop. Um, I think weapon collection. I think all armor and weapon collections should have standardized rolls on them, and then take those along with this is my other wish list. This is my other wish list. Take those along with the stacks of mod components that we've had, and use those to go ahead and roll things. You know, just yeah. I liked it back in Destiny 1 where the gunsmith could re-roll items for you, and I thought that was fantastic. Now, it didn't work with armor. Armor was pretty static, if I remember. But again, I think collections should be collections. It's a way to like archive your your acquisitions, and then pull them out, kind of like a secondary vault. First of all, this will do so much to smooth out the game. One, you won't have players hoarding mass quantities of items in the vault just in the off chance that they might become viable. Now, everybody who has a god roll or a perfect roll, item, they're not going to do crazy things with it. They're going to go ahead and they're going to keep it and they're going to use it. Um, if the gun gets nerfed or something like that, they might put it back. But I'm going to say that out of 500 possible slots, maybe 2 pages worth of these are god rolls. But hoarders are going to be hoarders. You're not going to be able to stop it. This is what I'm talking about, dude. I've got 2 full stacks. Well, technically 3 full stacks when you consider I'm going to add this one here now. Let's see, 3 full stacks and change. And I got a buddy of mine, the same guy who uses the Jester pants. Um, he's got way more than this because he plays a hell of a lot more than I do. It would be fun if we just got, like I said, static rolls off of weapon drops, and then you could refarm the activity for like, you could do it like Raid Shadow Legends and other gacha games do. Okay, like you saw that. This is what just got me thinking about this. So, okay, so I've gotten multiples of this keening. Okay, now they all have different roles on them, but believe it or not, there's a certain point. This is actually a really good one. There's a certain point where you're going to get duplicates. Okay, well you've already got duplicates here. So how about this? Say for instance, just to be funny, I want. Well, let's use the keening one because this is actually a pretty good roll. I want this roll. I want this gun, and I think this gun is great. I could take, and now you can infuse, I could take this guy out and then click on him, and I can infuse his power, okay? But let's say I don't want surplus, okay? Let's say that I'm always going to be using my abilities, so surplus is kind of like not going to be really working it for me. Maybe I want to get one for all in this slot. All right. So what you can do then is you could break down the other guns. You can open this up and you can click on this perk, and just like you can upgrade the power here, you can click on this one to re-roll that particular perk. But you have to have another copy of the keening in order to do it. All right. It's independent of the power, but you have to have a copy of the keening on it. And if Bungie really wants to slow down the progress, maybe you have to have a masterworked version of this gun. This gun has to be masterworked first, so you have to masterwork this. This you'll never change, but you have to masterwork this, so you have to fully level up the gun, all right? And the keening that you want to infuse into this perk roll to re-roll it has to have at least, I don't know, maybe 50 kills on it. All right. In other words, before just going ahead and saying, "Oh, I hate Zen Moment. Don't want to play with Zen Moment," you actually have to take it into the field and play with it, because maybe you will like Zen Moment. Maybe this Pulse Monitor Zen Moment version of the keening is actually worth it. Because Bungie's big thing about they don't want us playing multiple classes is because they want us to be able to explore and experience the full game's palette, and I totally support that. I'm okay with that. I like that. I mean, when I make meals for my kids and wife, I put a bunch of stuff on the plate. You're not expected to eat everything, but I'd like you to sample some of it at least. You don't have to finish it. If you don't like the coleslaw, don't finish the coleslaw. I'm fine with that. You don't want the carrots, don't eat the carrots, but try a couple of them. You never know. There are certain things in your experience in the game that are, I've played enough of this game that I know. I don't play Titans because of the principle. Titans are easy mode, fight me. And I don't play Warlocks because I just don't have the timing for them. Okay, it's for the same reason why I love guitar, and I've tried to teach myself to play guitar for decades, and I just don't have the dex the dactyl, that's toes. I don't have the digital strength, because fingers are called digits, believe it or not. I don't have the finger strength and speed at which to play the guitar that I want to play. I don't want to play soft, lulling, romantic music. I wanted to play good jam and metal kind of music, but in order to do that, you'd have to have that endurance in your fingers and in your arms. And I have the endurance in my arms, which means I'm a pretty good drummer, according to this one instructor I had. But getting over the fretboard and getting the timing on the strings for me is just not something I'm going to do. So as much as I'd like to play guitar, I would like to play guitar and have played ukulele quite well, I'm not playing guitar because I just suck at it. I'm just not as good as I want to be at it. I won't play a warlock because I'm just not as good at a warlock as I could be. Compared to the baseline, which is I measure myself against everybody else in the game, compared to the baseline player for warlock, I don't play warlock. Um, I just don't do warlock. I mean, I'm not that good at PvP to begin with, but again, if I ever were to change my mind and roll another Titan, he would just be a PvP character because he's just that easy to play in PvP. Excuse me. So back to this idea. So having a fixed role keening, having a fixed role weapon, then needing to get the other one. Now, here's the thing: you can pull them out of collections. You can pull multiples out of the collection and then use those to farm. But if you look at collections, it costs you, doesn't it? Let me see. It takes a while now for it to wind up because reasons. If I wanted to pull out this duty bound, it's going to cost me shards, glimmer, and materials. All they got to do to encourage people to keep playing and farming the game, raise those costs a little bit. And again, in order for me to infuse this gun to re-roll another duty bounds perk, like say for well, actually duty bound's got some pretty good perks in it. I mean, you can't go wrong with these. I mean, this is and an auto rifle at 600 RPM. Zen. Why am I not playing this in Crucible? Holy shit, that's freaking stupid. I should be playing this in Crucible because this is a really good rifle for me. And again, this is all about for me. You know, as many tubers would say back in the olden days, your mileage will vary. But again, you know, if I didn't want, say for instance, I didn't want Zen Moment on this, and I wanted to try for something else like Kill Clip or Rampage. There's Rampage, never mind. Outlaw. Okay, say I wanted Outlaw instead of Zen Moment, then I would have to have another duty bound out there. This would have to be masterworked, which of course it does masterwork here. It'd have to be leveled up to the current power to its max level, 1060. And so I have to first I'd have to infuse it up to its current seasonal cap. All right, there you go. Now Bungie can go ahead and satiate their need for power creep. So first it has to be leveled up to its current seasonal cap. Then it has to be masterworked. Then you have to have another duty bound with at least X number of kills on it in order for you to feed that into this perk to re-roll the perk tree. I mean, that's you at best, if you're managing an inventory of just one of each of the archetypes, you probably only maybe get through a third of those in a season because you'd be too busy doing other things as well. That's the other thing too, is that you know, random rolls are fun, but they're there to help you they're there to encourage you to chase the game. And you shouldn't be chasing the game. What you should be chasing is your fun. You should be chasing your abilities and leveling those up. There should be things that directly affect your character's playability and your skill. Now, again, going back to the Stompies, I wanted to talk about these a little bit. I did get an exotic another pair of Stompies in the Nightfall. We got to 100k this week, and I was super excited. No, that was last week, sorry. Got to 100k last week with some randos, and I'm super excited about it because I got the Stompies. Now, this actually does have, and as you can see, I fully masterworked it, leveled it up, added the same perks, the Radiant Light, and why doesn't this show the stat increase? It should show the stat increase for Radiant Light there, and yet it doesn't here. Oh, it says plus 20 strength. Okay. So if I take off this, it should go from 105 down to 85. There we go. So you take that off, and then you take this off. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to take this off. And you can see there's a 3-point spread difference. Now, even though the Stompies in my holding inventory have 3 points more in total value, that's not going to be as important at what those stats fall on. For instance, I like a high resilience. Recovery doesn't really seem to bother with. Recovery doesn't really affect me the way I play. I'm so much into the fire that falling back and getting out of the way, I'm going to recover no matter what. So having a high recovery doesn't matter. Discipline is all about the grenade, and as you've heard me just talk about in this video alone, hunter grenades are trash. You use them as a way to, you know, spook an NPC out of cover or into cover, or to find an opponent player in Crucible if you're not able to track them particularly well. You throw that scatter grenade or whatever down there, and just follow the little tracker bombs. Just they'll go where the enemy is supposed to be. And honestly, in kind of a roundabout way, you could also test to see if a player is lag switching, because what'll happen is you'll throw the scatter grenade, it'll bloom, but it won't track any enemy if that enemy is technically not really there. If you're seeing an enemy there, you throw the scatter grenade at him, it blooms, but then it hesitates for more than a half a second, then the chances are the image you're looking at is not accurate. Just letting you know. It also is a good way to test your own lag on the game if your connection is not up to par and you're having problems. with your internet, then that's a good way to figure out. Okay, well, my connection is going to be kind of shit in this game. The best thing I can do for my team is just not give up so many points and stop trying to die so much. Support the command captures if you're playing that. Otherwise, stay the fuck out of line of fire and be an annoyance, but just don't get yourself murdered. So anyway, digress again. Um, so the Stompies here, these are actually better, in my opinion, than these, especially for my needs. Now the mobility stays about the same. I get 14 on both. Okay. Um, Not too much of a dip here with the strength. 16 on my originals and 14 on the new ones, but that intellect goes hella far down. Now I do roll with a high intellect because I want to make sure that my super comes up pretty good. Now I've got a tier 9, so I don't need to put any more intellect on this, but what I could do is just put more mobility on it because I only have an 8 mobility, and mobility, intellect, and strength are my 3 focus stats. Everybody plays a little differently, but that's what I'm saying. When you're looking for armor, look for things like these arms are perfect. Mobility, intellect, and strength. That's the pattern I'm looking for on all my armor. Here we go for my chest plate. I have rolled higher stat values overall on my chest plates, my chest armor, and still have kept this one from last season because actually a couple seasons ago. No, last season, because of the displacement on the armor. Um, Cloaks don't really matter, So here, this is exactly the discipline here is a bit high and the mobility is a bit low. That's because I put the stat into the grenades. I was wearing these specifically because I had grenade bounties. I needed to throw a lot of grenades. In strikes, grenades are okay with hunters. It's the PvP part that I'm talking about. Lucky pants. I don't care. I really don't care. Yes, I play hand cannons quite a bit, but I mean, doesn't matter. And that's what I'm trying to say is that focus on the stats you play. Um, you want your class stat because you always want your class ability up. So that's Titan, that's Warlock, this is Hunter. Then you want whatever these 3 down here that really make the difference for you. I know that if I was going to play a Titan, I definitely want to go with more strength. If I was playing a Warlock, I'd want to go with more grenades. And then, of course, intellect straight up on the top. Um, and yeah, that's kind of basically all I really wanted to share. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, by the way, if you like my idea about the suggestion for how to reroll static perks on guns, and then you could just actually pull guns from your collections when you want them, like say for instance, let's just say just on duty bound becomes meta. Okay, 600 RPM rifles become meta again. You want the duty bound because it rolls automatically with Zen Moment and ricochet rounds. Um, and say maybe the scope is not something you like. You want a different scope. Then this has to get masterwork. It has to be brought up to it has to be infused up to the I would say at least its maximum power level. I mean, whatever. Maybe infuse it up to the floor for the season. Like right now, it's 1310 for this current season, 14. Uh, um, and so you have to have it has to be 1310. So if you pull it out of collections, it drops at 1100. But then you got to infuse it. You got to masterwork it. Then you got to go ahead and get 50 kills on a copy of it, and then you can go ahead and infuse it into these perks here to try and change them, and let RNG do its thing. You're still chasing weapons, you're still farming activities, you're still farming materials, but now you're working on fine tuning the weapon. Because if I was a gun collector, which I'm not, if I owned a gun, which I don't, and I wanted to fine tune if I wanted to tune the scope, I wanted to get a bigger zoom on it, I would just go to the gunsmith and say, "Hey man, can you improve the scope on this? Can you give me a scope for this weapon?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, here's a scope." You see what I'm saying? It wouldn't be like, "Oh yeah, dude, sorry, I went for the scope, but the grip is what got changed." That's for no. It's silly. Okay, now I know we're dealing with paracausal matter, energy, high fantasy, low sci-fi kind of fun stuff here. But when I re-roll a weapon, I shouldn't, it should. If I'm re-rolling for the scope, I shouldn't get a grip or a stock change. That shouldn't be what happens. I shouldn't get a magazine change. I shouldn't get a barrel change. I shouldn't get a bayonet change. If I'm rolling for scope, I should get just scopes. Just to, this is obviously preemptive because this whole thing is just a fantasy thing. But anyway, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching and stopping by, and have fun.